Leading Generation Z is quite a controversial topic. I know how dangerous it is to stereotype any group, and why, given that all generations are unique, why do we want to single this one out for special attention? They are the first generation born into digitization. They do not know a world without social media or smartphones. We need leaders who are truly authentic. No longer is it good enough just to talk the talk. To get the most out of this generation, you need to work hard to build an honest relationship built on trust and founded on a strong ethical base. And there is a need to create certainty through structure, through standards, through values that have real meaning and substance. People laugh at the first 5 weeks at Santa's, where we do lots of drill, we do lots of inspections, cleaning. But you know what? Habit forming is really important. Sweating the small stuff, getting the basics right is important because it drives confidence. We can't just assume good leadership anymore. This is a generation that craves authenticity. Then we need to ensure we understand how they view us. My kids laugh at me at the fact that I can't even still work my smartphone. And it's not just a senior thing. In the recent crisis, when we had issues in our training establishments, we had to send over 4,000 youngsters back home whilst we reset the training engine for COVID compliance. We had to form virtual platoons that meant we could care for them, develop them, and look after them whilst they were at home. And we assumed wrongly that the generation of instructors, millennials mostly, were going to be able to do all this, that they were going to be comfortable, virtual leading. And we were wrong. In terms of, leading them, it's got to be, we need to understand how we communicate clearly. The how is just as important as the what, perhaps you could argue. The old-fashioned tomes of paper directives just don't hit it, as I know you all know. And the best thing I've done recently, the last couple of years, is get myself a reverse mentor. In my case, it's been a young female officer who's been able to advise me on the best way to make that all-important connection with my people. It's about retaining that enduring nature of leadership, because I think as my friend in the photograph that you can see hopefully there is about to demonstrate, in those last unforgiving seconds or meters, men and women follow us not because of our rank or our position in the company, but they follow us because they believe in us as people. Great question. Do you know what we were wrestling as I left the army 2 weeks ago, and my last job, I, as well as Sandhurst, I also looked after the recruiting and training command. So we'd sent everybody home, and the headquarters have been working from home, same as you guys, and then we had to bring everybody back in gradually, except we didn't, because we didn't have to, and people got used to working from home, distributed working off the laptop. And actually we found that in terms of outputs, we were getting very similar in terms of when we were all together in the headquarters. However, around about the sort of 2.5 month niggles started to sneak in, and people who had great relationships were starting to get a bit strained, and we were trying to put our finger on it. And it was all about the fact that this is a different way of working. We're not really used to it. So there are going to be some strains on relationships when you can't do that face to face, and you can't, get yourself in a room and smash through some ideas. So we were thinking about, how are we going to do this? How are we going to bring everybody back in? And do you know what? It sounds really flippant, but we decided what we needed was a good old-fashioned company smoker, or and by a company smoker, what I mean by that is it's effectively a party where everybody can just come together and just get to know one another again, and problem under the chest. And I know it's difficult to do in COVID compliant land, but I think that's what we need. And my advice to you is you need to have some sort of team building, bonding session that gets people back into the team. I would just say that there is a danger there, that if you link it to formal evaluation, it sort of goes against the grain somewhat, because it's supposed to be, it's about self-awareness. But I think there's got to be some way of picking up people who are struggling as leaders, failing as leaders, and being able to identify them. And if they don't improve, then you've got to step in and do something about it. Give them the opportunity to improve themselves. But if they don't, then you've got to step in and do something about it.
I think it's also, Andrew, about being very clear about what good leadership looks like in a specific organisation, and that can vary quite a lot. The Army, for example, is very good at defining the values and standards that are expected from all ranks and reinforcing that from day one of training all the way through somebody's career.
One thing we pulled in the last couple of years was a thing called the Leadership Code, which helps translate the values that we sign up to as Army leaders into behaviours. And it serves as a checklist to sort of mark your leadership. It's really, really useful, and it's quite good at driving culture. We struggle with the concept of virtual leadership, trying to make sure that people understood that even though people are distributed and spread up around the place and you're dealing with them through a screen, you still got to be able to inspire and be able to lead them the same way as you would do if they were in the same room.
Leaders have found themselves obviously remote. They're in a situation that no one's been in before, and there's a lot of expectation and weight on their shoulders. So they're expected to have the answers for their teams. They're expected to role model a positive outlook about the future of business and the individuals within their teams, and they don't necessarily have all the answers. What we're finding is they're benefiting greatly from having either a reverse mentor or a coach or somebody they can share that experience with to sort of relieve the pressure a bit and just reflect on their experience to date, discuss options in a safe environment, and just really understand how other leaders are approaching it as well. They're not becoming too downward focused, but continuing to look upwards and outwards.
Being authentic is about creating the bonds of trust that allow you to unlock the ability to drive innovation. Everything goes back to trust. If you think that if I'm going to drop the ball and make a mistake here, my boss is going to fire me or is going to punish me in some way, you ain't going to go out there and do some innovation. But if you know that the boss is a good bloke and I've seen him or her, and I know him or her, and I believe in them, so I'm going to push the boundaries for them, and I'm going to go for it because I know I'm going to be covered. Surely that's got to be the way it's got to work culturally.
There are some big differences between the military context and business context and leading in those two different scenarios. But of course, I think there are a lot of similarities as well. And there are certainly lots of very positive military leadership traits and approaches that map well into the business world. For example, businesses can focus on character and behaviour as a core to high performance leadership, above skills and expertise. And clearly there'll be a balance between the two. And senior leaders can also do more often to leverage the expertise of their teams and to genuinely listen to them and trust them and involve them. So there are lots of lessons and approaches that can be learned, and I think equally the military can learn a lot from business as well, and that's certainly happening with coaching, mentoring and many other areas.